This is the Web Platform Podcast, episode number 44, and we're going to be talking about developer events, organizing them, speaking at them, participating in them, or just having fun at them. And we have a special guest today, a Google developer expert, Angular master, and ng-conf master. Most of you guys will know him from Aaron Frost.
What's up, guys and girls, ladies and gents?
And it's just me and Danny today on the panel.
Hey, guys.
And today, when we talk about events, one of the more recent events that for Angular was this Vegas one that you guys did.
Yeah.
So can you talk about how ng-conf and the Vegas one came about? I think it's Angular U, right? Was it?
So Angular U is another one, man. There's a lot of Angular events going on, but
my gosh.
Yeah. So ng Vegas is like a private venture that Joe Eames and I are doing with a couple friends. One of the friends is my identical twin brother, and the other friend is Ryan Sullivan, who's a good name in the WordPress community. But ng-conf is like the original 5 ng-conf guys: Dave Geddes, Merrick Christensen, Joe Eames, myself, and Kip Lawrence. So those are kind of the events we've done recently, but it's kind of surprising the demand from the Angular community for more events and more learning opportunities. We weren't sure that the demand for ng Vegas would be there with ng-conf having just happened, but man, the community, the speakers and like the attendees all responded and just came out swinging. Angular U's also looking similar, and they're next month in June, and you've got Angular Summit possibly happening in September, and then you've got Angular Connect happening over in Europe in October. A lot of Angular events, and I'm only related to the first two, ng Vegas and ng-conf.
That's awesome. That is a lot of Angular material. If you like Angular, there's something that you can go hang out at.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy, actually.
Yeah, like Israel did an ng-conf, and Netherlands did an ng-NL, which was cool. And there's a lot of stuff everywhere for Angular, and React is doing the same thing. React is exploding right now. Conferences popping up everywhere. So it's actually pretty cool to see these frameworks explode like they are.
Yeah, so I heard that Jameson Dance from JavaScript Jabber from your side is organizing a React conference over there, right?
Yeah, I think it's called React Rally, and I'm not sure when it is. I think it's sometime this summer. But I'm guessing it's going to be awesome just because I know those guys. I know Jameson, and I know why can't I think of Beardman's name? Matt. Why can't I think of Matt's last name? He's going to kill me, but he's a vegan. That's like all that's coming to mind.
Beardman, you know who you are.
Beard Matt, that's a vegan. You know who you are. Why? Zabriskie. Matt Zabriskie. See, that's why I couldn't remember. It's hard to remember. Yeah, they're doing an event here, so it's going to be cool.
That's great. So what we kind of wanted to talk about now is, like, the fact that all these conferences are coming up is really awesome. The amount that you guys, I'm a huge fan of Adventures in Angular and JavaScript Jabber, by the way, so I just needed to get that out so cool. I can try to not fanboy as much as possible.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Yeah, no problem. But so you guys are doing a lot of this stuff and putting on these awesome things for the community, but it's not easy to do this stuff. Like it's not like you're just like, oh man, we're just gonna meet with a bunch of our buddies and then thousands of people will show up. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. When you're doing an event, there's so many decisions you have to make that will make it easier or harder down the road, and no matter which way you choose, it's going to be hard, but there's things you can do along the way to make it easier. Picking a conference around a technology that rocks is definitely the easiest, the best thing to do, because finding awesome speakers is like just a given. For an ng-conf or for, I'm sure the React Rally guys are experiencing the similar thing where you don't really have to try hard to find epic speakers and talks on epic topics, because you get over 200 submissions and you can only accept 30 to 40 of them. So it's easy to select the best quality, embrace diversity in there, and get people from all around the globe, all around the community to participate in your event. So there's a lot that you can do easier, but the easiest is probably picking something that people really care about, like an Angular or a React or something cool new, like a service worker. I know you want to do a conference, web components, something like that. Really cool stuff that people are really excited about.
So when you're trying to, so how do you figure out when something has gotten to that point, though? So, like some things may be pretty obvious, but especially if you want to be like one of the first conferences to do, so like you want to put together this group and you're like, well, like there's nothing really around for this. How do you help gauge community interest in something like that, or do you just kind of make your best educated guess and really hope people show up?
Man, I've done both, and it's tough. There's stress either way. With ng-conf, my buddy Kip said, "Aaron, let's go to an Angular conference." I was like, "Dude, we totally should go to an Angular conference, right?" And we Googled it, and we didn't find anything. Maybe we were just bad Googlers, but I figured I was going to be able to Google, and maybe I could ask the Angular team if they would send some guys. And so we went with that plan, and they were like, "Yeah, we'll send some guys. We'll send the whole team." And ng-conf was born. And I did something, and the tickets with ng-conf was like 100% organic. Tickets sold out in seconds, and I mean it was crazy. To try and emulate that on anything else is ridiculous. ng-conf is just a weird beast, and to try and emulate it is tough. But I did for like the WordPress community. They have never had a developer event. They've had of business events where developers go, where there's one or two classes for developers, but they've never had like a full-on developer event. And some people from the WordPress community is like, "Hey, we think that we need one of these. You did ng-conf, can you help?" And I was just thinking it was going to be like ng-conf, tickets are going to sell out. I'm not going to have to stress about being upside down, dozens of thousands of dollars with the hotel. And that turned out to not be the case. A lot of times when you're doing a conference, your first year, you need to be a little bit more humble, and you really need to kill it that first year, though. And then year 2 will get better, and by year 3 you should be good. So LoopConf, we just finished its year 1, and it was kind of like off the charts awesome for a first year event. So next year's going to be better for them. But I don't really know how to answer the gauge it, because I've been involved in 2 where they were kind of pioneer conferences. And so if you're in something that's totally saturated, I don't know what to say. But if you're in something that has never had a conference before, like you guys are talking about web components, is the community ready for a web components conference? I don't know. You could.
We don't either.
You can just take some first steps, and you'll see sponsors will respond, and you can see tickets respond, and speakers should respond, and.
Yeah, we haven't talked about that we've started doing that, but Danny and I are working on doing that now, and we've talked to you about it in private. But the web components is because it's so in flux and there's so much tension between different viewpoints on it. It is kind of a dangerous thing, and when we talk with people, we have no problem, like you said, getting people to come speak and like, oh yeah, I want to do it, but there's a cost, right? So like one of the struggles we're having now is the logistics part of it, trying to get sponsors and get people to commit to a date and say, let's do this date and we're going to have these sponsors and let's roll with it.
Yeah. So I mean, thinking back to the first time I did a big conference, we had this thought of, do we do a low budget conference at a place that's low budget and the tickets are cheap, which is all I'd really done on a smaller level, or do we do something way more fancy, way more expensive, and figure out a way to include the community as well, like people who don't have corporate sponsorship as well? And so we opted to do like a really nice event, and we opted to charge more money so we could give like a limousine type experience at the event, and then do a live stream with ng-conf. And so there's all these questions you have to answer. Like maybe you're not the limousine type event. Maybe you're more of the grassroots type. But I mean, just those decisions alone will kill you. They'll make you not sleep at night. Like, what kind of event are you going to be?
You can
And
tell that I'm not sleeping.
yeah, so if you think that sleeping's now, I mean, wait till you book with your venue and they lock you in for like $100,000 or $200,000 or $300,000, and then your tickets haven't even begun to sell yet, and in between the time that your tickets sell and you've signed that contract, you just can't sleep because I mean, you're thinking about your family and how you're going to pay for this if no one supports your cause, and it's super stressful, right? You're kind of laying it out on the table. You're kind of putting yourself on the line to help the community, and it's a stressful position to be in, I'm not going to lie. So if you think this, considering it's tough, wait till you actually take a couple steps and you're in this limbo mode. It's pretty stressful.
None of this sounds fun. None of it sounds fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So when Kip looked at me when we couldn't find one, an Angular event, he's like, "Hey, let's do one." I kind of looked back at him with these eyes of like, "Yeah, that sounds awesome," because it totally didn't sound awesome. It sounded horrible. It sounded like a crap idea to like go do a huge event. But after I thought about it, I was like, you know what, you're right. Like if someone's got to do this. Utah has this weird love history with JavaScript. Why can't we do it here? So let's do it and see what happens. And then the stress kind of starts to begin after you decide you're going to do it.
But then, so the one thing I also want to get into a little bit is that some of the stress doesn't come just from people putting on the events, but say, for example, you are a speaker at a big event as well. Any event. I've spoken at 2 things, and they're both terrifying, and I'm probably not very good at it. But there are a lot of people out. It's like the first 2 times that I've done it, and I was like, they're not going to like what I say. I'm going to have people yelling at me by the end. I don't know if I can do this. So you also, I mean, so you do the podcast, conference stuff. What about that part of it? So like a little bit more granular level, like what was the first thing that you spoke at that you were like, this might not go well, or you're just nervous about what people were going to say about the things you had to say?
That's a good question. It is hard for speakers. Dave Geddes and I, we were friends, and we had a few years ago, 3 years ago now, we both submitted very serious proposals to speak at Fluent, topics that we, in our hearts, really wanted to talk about to the community. And then we realized we hadn't submitted together, so we threw one out there that was just like total jackassery. And, no way Simon and Peter are going to pick this talk. Like, it would be crazy if they picked it. And then they picked it. So I submitted a talk called 1.21 gigawatts, Chrome apps with Node and Angular. And then, like, my description talked about how we would have security to make sure the audience was safe, and it was going to get crazy. And I mean, it was literally, I was just throwing it out there real quick before the cutoff at noon. And they picked it, and Dave and I were like, I don't even know, bro. Like, what are we going to talk about? And so we built this Chrome app that we thought it was fun, and our talk was about us being better speakers and stopping saying the words so, like, and and we incorporated the audience to troll us at first, and then we automated the trolling so that they could just push a button, and we kind of got into the Chrome apps and the Node and the Angular, and then by the end we got into the Chrome app with hardware integration, and we hooked ourselves up to like a shocking device that would shock us, and the speech recognition API that would just listen to us and shock us if we said one of those words, and so we kind of automated the whole trolling ourselves experience, right, with an electrical shock. And we didn't know if people were going to love it or if they're going to hate it, and we were pretty sure we struck gold because we didn't really have any 3s as a response. We had 1s, 1 stars out of 5, and we had 5 stars out of 5. We didn't really have any 3s, so we were super polarizing, and so people were either, this was the best talk I've ever heard, or you just wasted 45 minutes of my life. So that's how we knew we did something right. But before going in, oh man, we were so scared because we respect the JavaScript community so much, and to open up that side of you for your critique by your peers is a hard thing to do, man. Especially when you know your peers are legit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because and that's another part of it too, is that you start talking about something, because like I just did a talk at a local meetup here about prototyping, which people have a lot of, which I have a lot of opinions about, and a lot of other people have a lot of opinions about. I mean, and it ended up going fine, but like like I was putting my slides together and writing all this stuff. I'm like, I know these are things that people don't agree with, and if those people are there, it could potentially turn into something, may potentially turn into madness. It all in all, it like ended up going awesome and like really good discussion, but there is that fear, because there aren't, especially right now in web, there aren't that many topics that aren't controversial. It's controversial how to construct objects, so there's not much you can talk about that's not going to push somebody's buttons.
Yeah.
Yeah, not everybody is going to appreciate the stuff that you say, because they have they're there for their own reasons, right? They may be that they enjoy it, it may not be. It's not, I thought your talk was great, Danny. I didn't get to see it live, but I saw it on the video, which was pretty awesome.
Oh, thank you.
So, I mean, going back to with events in general, a lot of developers I talk to, they don't want to speak. They don't necessarily want to go to events. They just want to sit in their seats and code, right? So what is the advantage for a developer? And to take that a little further, what's the advantage, or why would any company care about this marketing type of eminence? It's almost like sales, like when you go out and you talk about things, but you're not selling a product. You're selling yourself, and you're selling, like the stuff that you love to do. Yeah, your personal brand.
Yeah. So I work with some guys like what you're saying, who are great without needing to be inspired by others, and maybe they are inspired by others. They just get it a different way. I've never been that person, and I wish I was more like them. They have some qualities that I wish I had. I've always needed to be closer to people and get to know them, and I love the networking part of it, and it gets me excited to get out and meet guys like you two, and to get to meet some of the leaders in the community, and to really get out there and pitch something that I think that I've done that could make someone else's like life better, their life easier, and I get excited sometimes about sharing those ideas. At NG Vegas, I gave a talk called "Building Bridges," and there's a poem called "The Bridge Builder" that talks about an old man who stopped his travels after crossing a river, and he built a bridge for the next person coming along the way, so that they wouldn't have to fight with what he had to fight with. And I think that as community leaders, the way to really leave your mark is to get out there and to talk about it, make it better for the next guy, build a bridge for the next person. When you think about the topic of bridge building, and you think back to the people who didn't build bridges, you don't really remember too many of them. You remember the person who helped you, and the person who helped that person, and maybe the person who built the framework that you loved. But you don't remember the person who just sat at their desk and they were great at everything, and they didn't really help anyone. So I think it's really an internal need that certain people have to get out and give back as a way of showing their thanks to the people that help them. I don't know. Like that's what it is for me, though.
Very elegantly put.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's very true, and it makes a lot of sense. There's a reason for. The JavaScript community is a great example of that. There's the reason there's so many packages on NPM. Like for sometimes even like Gulp Vinyl Streams is a really small library, but that thing is really, really useful. Mm-hmm. And I don't have to mess with that anymore. I don't have to do that one thing because somebody already did it. Mm-hmm. And I think everybody can kind of. Everybody has had to use those kind of things, but then maybe you have, maybe you have an idea too, or you've had to fight with I don't know, like people that are now starting to integrate ES6 into their Angular 1.3 apps and stuff like that, and like there are like a couple different ways that people are trying to manage to do those things. And like I just looked at the 1.0 release of, I think it's the 1.0 release of generator gulp Angular. Like that thing has changed a lot since it first started. And like, so I think you can use just ES5, ES6 TypeScript, or CoffeeScript, and it will scaffold like an Angular app for you. And that's something. And if anybody's tried to set those things up before, like sometimes it's really easy, and sometimes it turns into a huge pain. So this guy in this group of, I'm forgetting his name off the top of my head, which makes me feel bad because I was just like looking at their stuff today. Like have put together this thing so that you don't have to do it, and like that's really really awesome that they managed to do that. And I think that's like that's a physical thing, but sometimes it's not just like, it's not a node module, or it's not a generator. It is just saying like, this is my experience that I had, this is how we managed to get around it. We used, or even just like, okay, is this somebody saying this combination of tools or something will help you get around problems that you may run into. So that's I think that's the perfect analogy for the way that you build communities and the way you give back to communities.
Yeah, building bridges doesn't have to be a talk. It can be an NPM module. It can be anything, right? Like it's just how you give back. It doesn't really matter how, as long as you do it, right?
Yep. So on those lines of you just have to do it, how do you find time to do it? We've got full-time jobs, and my wife yells at me all the time because I come home from work and then I sit down on the couch and I start coding on something else on my GitHub account, and so you just have to do it. How do you find time to do it without burning yourself out?
That's a good question. To not burn yourself out is a big deal. With ng-conf, we got lucky that we made the decision to be the nicer type of event and charge more money. So with that, we decided we needed. It got so big so fast. The sponsors just constantly had demands, and the website had demands, and the speakers had never-ending questions, and the tickets needed to be constantly refunded and resold, and blah and blah. And there was just so much going on in the swag and the hotel and the food, and there's so many balls in there. We hired an employee, and we got lucky that we hired like the best. And her name's Sunny. And if anyone listening does an event and wants someone to help them run it and like do the logistics, Sunny's the best. Reach out to me and I'll get you in touch with her. She's the best. And Sunny, we kind of transitioned our management style at that point to, we were kind of the ideas guys and the question answer guys, and Sunny was kind of the deliver it person, if that makes sense. And so we would say, Sunny, we need our screens to be laid out like this, like at the at the hotel. The screens need to be like this. The tables need to be laid out like this. Go find out what food there is and bring it back to us, and we'll make a decision. And then Sunny would go run all those errands. She would go, find out the costs on the different screen layouts. She would go get our logos made. She would go get all the different menu options from the hotel, bring them back to us. We would then make a decision. She would go then order the food from the hotel. She just kind of became the do-it person. So that was one of the biggest ways, was to involve Sunny.
Good job, Sunny.
Yeah, no, she's epic, and she's done several events now that are large. She's helping with the React Rally. She's really getting some momentum. She's awesome. But if you're doing a lower cost event and you need help, the only way is to distribute the load across multiple people and make someone in charge of something and someone else in charge of another thing. If you try and do it with just 2 or 3 people, you're definitely going to burn out, especially if you're not paying yourself any money for doing it. If you're doing it all for free, it gets to be a big burden on yourself, like huge. So yeah.
So when we started planning this initially too, like for the Web Components conference, we were thinking, oh, well, you know what? Maybe we could have, if we get enough sponsors, the sponsors could cover all the costs, and we could really bring down the cost for people to come, because we wanted it to be something that people weren't like looking at going, oh my God, $800 for a ticket or something like that, or I have to pay that much, and I got to pay for hotel and all this stuff. Like, how do you balance that? How do you figure that out?
So the way that we did it was we knew we were going to just live stream it. So we knew that we could deliver an awesome event with the best speakers, and we didn't want to have to care where the speaker was from. Like, if the best speaker is coming from Europe, you don't want to have to be like bound by some budget to not get them. So we were like, let's just do the best kind of event we can possibly do, and that's what we set out to do. And a lot of people said it was, one of the better events they've been to, and it was one of the better events I've been to. I walked in day one and was like, wow, this is better than I even thought it was going to be. And I had planned the bloody thing. But how you that's a good question. How you budget it? I don't know how to answer that question. It just depends on your values. Most people, a lot of people are going to have corporate backing. They work for big companies, right? And so that's where a lot of your ticket sales are going to go to. If you decide to do an expensive event, if you decide to do a cheaper event, you know that anyone can really get into your event, right? Anyone can buy a ticket.
Well, is that really true though? With something like Angular, there's a lot of corporations that are using it in production. But something like Polymer is just it's in beta right now, right? So not everyone in enterprise is really totally bought into it. The developers are excited about it, but it's hard. It's harder on that end.
So if you're talking about doing a Polymer conference, yeah, that would be tough. But if you're talking about doing a web components conference, that's not Polymer. That's React, and that's Angular 2 supposing to do web components, and that's Mozilla Xtags. So I don't know. I mean, if you're talking about Polymer, you're right. But if you're talking about web components themselves, you might be able to do a more fringe event and get a lot of people to come.
No, I mean that's just one aspect of it. I just wanted to kind of talk about that, but definitely I agree with you. We can get, everybody is going to be using some version of web components, and with all the face-to-face meetings that have been happening with Shadow DOM and coming up in July, there's one in custom elements. We're finally have some consensus, So I'm looking forward to it, and I hope we can get a lot of sponsorship and some the community to come out and have fun with us.
Yeah.
So Aaron, I have another just kind of my personal interest question for you. So I've been lucky enough with the podcast to get to talk to like a ton of people that I really, really respect, and that I like I was just saying to you, like I have to do my best to be like, oh my God, it's Aaron Frost. He's right there. I can see him from here. But I've got a chance to talk to people like that, and that's amazing. Is there somebody? So like in all of your time doing this stuff, you have to have gotten to meet like absolute giants in the industry. And is there somebody in particular that just blew your mind, like to be like that, to say like, oh, they're right there. I could go ask them this question right now if I wanted to.
Yeah, I can think of 3 times immediately. So once was when we did JavaScript Jabber with Brendan Eich. I emailed him. He responded. He's like, let's do it. And it went from a 1-hour show to a 2-hour show. We paused him at about an hour and 15 and said, Brendan, just so you know, we're over. We'll go as long as you're cool with it. He's like, let's just go 45 more minutes. And we were all in heaven because he's just sitting there giving us these juicy niblets about the history of JavaScript and all the not the drama, but kind of the drama that went in behind it, and like the emotion of people. And so that was a cool one, and just talking to Brendan for a couple hours. Another one was I just presented at ng-conf with Axel Rauschmeier, and to co-present with someone who you absolutely think is awesome is a pretty big deal. And he is every bit as awesome as I thought he was. So that was another cool one.
His blog is crazy awesome.
No, it's so good, man. And he's just such a nice dude. Oh my gosh. He's great. So yeah, those are 2 of the times where I can remember meeting some. Oh, and then at ng-conf, obviously I've spent a lot of time with the Angular team, and there was this one talk called ng-wat, which is basically like JS wat, but for Angular. And so it's a guy who gets up and basically makes fun of Angular. And he targets not the community, but he targets the Angular team themselves, which made it way more fun because they're fine with putting themselves out there for to be roasted once in a while. And his talk was so fun, and I sat there shoulder to shoulder with Misko as this kid ripped on him. And Misko's crying because he laughed so hard, and I'm crying because that's funny and the talk's funny. And the whole audience is dying. It was the best talk I'd ever seen. But just meeting those guys and being in those circumstances with them is also a lot of fun. So
He had so much energy. It was great.
Yeah, Shai Resnick, he's so good. Such a great presenter. Yeah, if you watch one talk from ng-conf and you just want to be entertained, go watch ng-wat. It was absolutely hilarious.
So we talked a lot about the organization too of these events. What about speaking? Because many of us, myself included, have done a lot of these call for proposals, and you're like you refine it, you do it. You're like, I think this is great. I'm going to send it out, and it's you don't get it. You don't like. I would say maybe more than like 8 out of 10 for me get dismissed. So how do you how do you look at that and say, is this really what I want to talk about? Because you have two audiences there. You have the audience that you want to get to, the other community members, the people that really care about this stuff, and then you have the people who are running the event as well, who may or may not care about this stuff, but they're interested in different things.
I'm going to be honest with you, man. The way to talk at a conference is to impress the organizers. Unless you're presenting to a conference that's community curated, which I've submitted to a couple where the community does curate their own talks. And they just go +1 it or they upvote it somehow, right? And then that's how you get selected. But most conferences I've spoken at the speakers were selected by the organizers. So my number one advice for the Eriks of the world and the Aaron Frosts are to not play it safe. And I'll give you an example. I already gave the example about FluentConf 2 years ago. I submitted some things and I was very serious about them, but I was almost too serious because to Peter and Simon it must have sounded absolutely boring in comparison to 1.21 gigawatts because that was the first one they picked. So a conference organizer really wants something that's going to bring people in and entertain and be something where everyone learns. And then so that as a community member, I kind of learned that you need to really go bigger and go home. Don't even submit at all unless you're going to completely step outside your comfort zone. And if you submit something that 15 other people are going to submit, you're probably not going to get picked because there's 15 others. And there's other reasons why you pick a speaker. Than just who they are or what they know. Like their presentation really is what kind of starts to matter at some point. But then as an organizer, I'm going to say, I double learned that lesson. You really have to kill it. You have to submit a presentation that's awesome. And an example was for ng-conf, when we started going through our selection process, we started seeing some patterns, people submitting on the same topic. Performance was one of them. And we had a lot of people submit very safe performance talk titles. And their descriptions were very safe. And then we had this guy, Scott Moss, submit one called Sasquatch is Real, and it was dollar watch, instead like Sasquatches with dollar signs, like the Angular watch. So Sasquatch is Real, and I was like, this guy's going to talk about performance. I already love his title. His description was out of the world. And I was like, you know what, Scott, based on the fact that his talk title sounds so much more fun, this is the one we're picking. Like, hands down, we're picking Scott's talk. And so that's how you get picked over the other 9 people that submitted on performance, is by having the best submission. So I know that you only have you have one sentence for your title and a paragraph for your description. Those all matter. That all matters. So you stop being safe, and if you play it safe and I'll be very real with you. When you let's say we all submit on the same topic, and they all sound the same. If there's some diversity among those speakers, some sort of diversity on any level, as conference organizers, certain conference organizers embrace diversity as like part of the conference. they will that's the thing that differentiates them, and that will get them selected. If they were all 9 sounded equally boring or exciting, that's the thing that would make them stand out. So, I mean, ultimately you're going to pick the best talk, but if everyone was equal, like there's certain things that make people stand out. So if you're like, hey, what are my strengths, weaknesses? How do I get picked? You really just have to knock it out of the ballpark, and you only have a title and a paragraph to do that. And it's tough, but that is how it works. That is how it works.
It is. It is tough, and I've seen some really good ones too. Like, and I'd look and see what they did, because some people put their proposals out there. In fact, Raquel Velez from NPM, she was on the show earlier, and she's amazing. Like, because JS-conf, they had a call for proposals maybe a little while ago. They had it, and she tweeted out, anyone who wants help editing their proposal so they can get it onto JS-conf, just send me it. And I was like, that's pretty amazing that somebody from the community would just say, hey, I'll just help you out to get on there.
Yeah, there's an art to it, and she knows it. She's definitely figured it out. And so if I was someone who wanted to get in, I would definitely take her up on that offer before I submitted, because she's going to be able to change what you're saying, change the words, use different words, and also inspire you to give a different kind of a talk than you probably were going to give anyway.
Oh, definitely.
You have to go higher than you think you need to go. You need to go beyond where you think you should have gone. They have to be big talks. You have to think bigger than your daily, what you do on a daily basis. So.
And what about like local events? Regional conferences, meetups, different groups that people go to.
Specifically, what about those?
So what makes them different? Like, are they, why would I go to a meetup when maybe I have a certain amount of comfort level with speaking? Do I want to go to a meetup versus a large event? Do I want to use that as a platform to get used to public speaking, or do I want to just share with my local community? Like, there's lots of different reasons people go to these events.
I'm going to say yes to all of that. That's where I got started, and I can't even measure the benefit I got from speaking at local events. I can't even measure it. The job I have today is the best job I've ever had. Like, and other people that love their job, it's not even as cool as this place. Domo is epic. And I got this because one of the guys at Domo saw me speaking at the local user group, and he was like, this is the guy we're going to hire. And it was an amazing experience. They brought me in, didn't interview me. They're like, we've already seen you. We already know who you are. We're not going to interview you. We just want to make you a job offer. It was like an insane experience. And the job has lived up to it. Like, it's been the best ever. So I don't even know how to measure for you the benefit of speaking at your local user group. Like, if you're not doing it, do it. If you're not meeting the people in your local user group, I don't know why you're not doing that, because the user groups, the community is like the coolest part about JavaScript. JavaScript as a language is fun, but the community is clearly the best part of it. Like, the language itself doesn't even compare to how great the open source community that's around JavaScript is. So if you're not involved, you need to get involved and have fun with it, because it's a real fun community to get involved with.
Yeah, and I mean, and if you're Erik and I are both like DC, like right around the DC area, and if you're trying to get into this stuff, a lot of people say, like, if you're starting out and you could survive on like free meetup pizza and beer, like, for several months.
Yeah, there's one every night, right?
Yeah, so you could go do something. One, yes, free food is always good, but you do get to meet. I mean, this part of that networking thing, or just getting to meet people that do different stuff. Like, online communities are great, but meeting and getting to talk to people face to face is important and matters. So again, something else, if you've never gotten into the meetup scene, if you want to, whatever, it's definitely something that's worth. And I mean, at the worst, it's one evening of your life, and then you can be like, well, I don't like doing any of this stuff, and then, like, that's fine. But you may meet a bunch of people that, like I said, like you, Aaron, is like, that's how you landed a job, and it's a community is important, and helping to cultivate it is everybody's job.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's so great. The people there are they just want to help, and the people especially running it, like we have a user experience group here, Nova UX, and GDG here is great too, and the organizers for that, you can tell their passion. You can see it like when they run these events that they're really into it, so it's great.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the user groups.
So we have we talked about live events, but you did live streaming for ng-conf. There was an event that I attended that was really fantastic. It was JS Remote Conf, and that's Charles Max Woods from JavaScript Jabber, and Ruby Rogues and other podcasts. He organized this one, and you were a speaker there, so I got to see your talk, which was sweet. And
I was nervous
you
about
did
that talk, man. I was really nervous.
It was awesome. I loved it. I love that you could go back and watch the videos after, because I had my kids and I couldn't really, the format was all remote. So for those who aren't familiar, this is like you don't go anywhere, you buy the ticket, and you go online and it's live streaming. And you can have live chat, so you're involved with it. And it was really awesome. I was only able to watch 2 of them live because my kids were sick for some of it. But the chat room, there's a chat room too on Discourse, so it's a really interesting format. So how would you compare the 2 types of formats?
I was nervous because I actually am very comfortable in front of people. My parents growing up were both drama teachers, so we kind of grew up a little bit on the stage, my brothers and sister and I. So being in front of people talking has never been a thing I've ever been scared of. Even when I don't know what I'm talking about, like right now, I've been able to just shoot from the hip pretty well. And this JS remote thing was like, you can't see, if you say something stupid, you're not going to see the guy raise his eyebrow, or you're not going to see the people whispering to each other that you just screwed up hardcore. And so I was actually super nervous because I feed off of the energy of the audience a lot, and I didn't have that. You know what I'm saying?
That's so true of theater. I did a lot of theater in high school, and yeah, totally.
Yeah, so I didn't have that thing I was used to, so I was super nervous. Additionally, I had a presentation prepared, and then like 5 days before the event, the TC39 removed some major functionality from things like destructuring, and I was like, what the fetch? Like, I got to go relearn destructuring and rewrite all my slides and blah, and I don't even know if it's how it's going to end up. And so I was actually pretty nervous about that talk, but I had a lot of encouragement from the people who went. I didn't have any negative feedback. I mean, I don't know if it was just so bad they went away, but people were really encouraging and very nice. But I actually really enjoyed speaking there. I would encourage anyone to submit to an online conference. They're pretty cool.
Yeah, and there's another one coming up. I don't know the URL, but I think it's rubyremoteconf.com, I think. If anyone is interested in doing the Ruby one.
And so, do you think they're just as effective as in person, or like are they just too different?
As a speaker, it's hard for me to gauge it. I've attended some remote things, and I've learned a lot. As a GDE, Google sometimes will have a conference call where they'll show us some stuff via Hangout, so it's kind of like a remote training conference. I learned pretty well on those, and I also learned pretty well from watching YouTube videos. So I think the format's probably pretty awesome. But again, I didn't watch JS Remote Conf. I was merely a speaker. But I think it was a great conference for the value, and he just had to cover his costs at live streaming. I think it was a great value for everyone who got involved. So yeah.
So I also wonder how different it is to organize a remote-only conference. Well, it's like certain things you just don't have to worry about. Like you don't have to worry about a venue, like is the big one. Like venue and hotel is a big thing. But then there are certain things you don't get.
Yeah. I bet with 24 time zones, because you have attendees in each of the 24, right? I bet you got people asking nonstop questions about the timing of things and showing up 23 hours before the talk actually started, and all sorts of weird stuff. So I bet it's his own beast. Yeah. I bet he gets tons more questions than we do on an ng-conf. But so as an organizer, that would be super stressful to deal with that much communication offline like that. Coordinating with all your speakers, making sure everyone's to go at the right time. And at ng-conf, I just go like grab you by the ear and come sit you down by me. I'm like, hey, you're next. Come sit down. But with JS Remote Conf, what if the dude doesn't respond? Like, or the person that's up next, you can't get a hold of her or whatever. Like that would be scary. So yeah.
Yeah. Or, I mean, so and there've been. I don't think there have been any like meetups or conferences I've been to with absolutely no technical hiccups of any kind. Even if it's just getting the projector to work correctly or something like that. So I can only imagine when it's all remote streaming, there is a big bucket of worms of things to just go horrendously wrong. Erik and I did a talk on Polymer at the at Google DevFest here last year, and we were also going to dial someone in, Jeff, I think. And said, like,
Jeff Posnick.
Yeah, all right. So we'll get, he'll dial him in. We'll get him up on the screen, and like for the last, 10, 15 minutes, people will get to talk, like maybe get to, interact with them a little bit more, and that went terribly. Like and we'll never attempt something like that again. It was a terrible idea, and it went really bad. But so I can only imagine, that was just one thing, but having everyone trying to stream these things and just you get this, the speaker gets disconnected, the speaker's Wi-Fi goes down for X or Y reason or whatever. I can imagine it being like you said, a different beast. It actually sounds almost scarier in the process. At setting it up, maybe not quite as much. Maybe not as much stress, I don't know, but then just the entire time it's going, you're just like, please don't cut out, please don't cut out, please don't cut out.
Yeah.
I bet if we used Pied Piper's algorithm, we'd be fine.
The Pied Piper 4K streaming, bro?
Yeah, for those who don't know, that's from Silicon Valley, that TV show on HBO.
It's so funny, man.
My brother watches that show, and he said that's his only reference to what I actually do for a living. So he bases everything I tell him, and he frames it in reference of that show.
Anyone who doesn't understand, anybody who doesn't understand the business that we're in, and they watch that, like my wife, for instance, she'll watch it and she'll be like, "Yeah, this is not funny. I just want you to know that. I'm gonna go downstairs now."
Yeah. This is stupid, but I think it's hilarious, man.
He's pretty good.
Totally. Well, Aaron, we're bumping up against time. Is there anything left that you'd like to say to developers as far as how they can get more involved in events, more involved in the community, and what what they should do to speak at these things or organize them?
Departing words of wisdom from Erik.
Yeah. So for ng-conf, we don't get a lot of volunteers to help until after the tickets are all sold out, and there's about 25 days till the event starts, and people are scrambling trying to figure out how to be involved any way they can, and we really need some of those volunteers 6 months out, and so once we get 2 months in, we're pretty much all taken care of. We don't really need any more help. So if you want to volunteer early, and be persistent about wanting to help. Don't just be like, hey, I want to help, email me, and then if they never follow up with you, just let it die. Be persistent. If you want to do an event, I would definitely talk to someone who's done an event before you do an event, because an event for 100 people is very different than an event for 700 or 1,000 people. So if you're thinking about doing a 700-person event, go talk to someone who's in a 700-person event, because it gets nuts. And before you sign your first $400,000 contract with a hotel, if that's the way you go, talk to someone who's signed one of those before, because there's things the hotel will try and trick you out of, and there's ways they'll try and manipulate you, and there's some tactics you should use to try and get your everything more in your favor and less in their favor. So yeah, like just talk to people before you do it. But the number one thing is if you really want to do it, just freaking go do it. I know it's stressful. I know you don't have time. None of us have time. ng-conf guys, we're all dads. Well, most of us are dads. We've all got full-time jobs. It's life's busy, right? And so that wasn't an excuse for us. Like, don't let it be an excuse for you. Get out there and help the community out however you think you need to.
Awesome. So for those who want to find you and learn more about you and what you do, what's your Twitter handle and how can people catch you?
So just tweet me, JS_dev, and I'll help out however I can. If you just need someone to ask some questions to, like, let me know, and we can help. Joe Eames he's also always very eager to help as well on these kind of events. So I'm gonna just volunteer him, and just let everyone know of the 5 people that run ng-conf, Joe Eames is kind of the silent champion because he is clearly the one. He's our quarterback, and he gets less of the spotlight than the rest of us. But he's clearly our quarterback, calling the cadence and marching us down the field. So talking to someone like a Joe Eames is a very good person to talk to.
That's fantastic. So thank you so much for coming on. We definitely appreciate it. We learned a lot, and it's also it's good to get this perspective of like what it takes, because a lot of people enjoy the stuff that you do. A little bit of insight into like just how like what it takes to actually make these things happen. So definitely thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. Erik, do you have any parting words before we disappear forever?
No, I wanted to say thank you, Aaron. It's been a pleasure. I know this was really short notice for you to come on, so it's amazing to have you on, and you're doing awesome stuff in the community. So thank you.
Appreciate it, man. I appreciate what you guys are doing too.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Absolutely means a lot. So as always, you can find me on Twitter as well. I'm D_blue, DEE_BLOO, because I'm very creative with spelling, and all other variations on Danny Blue were taken, every single one. So I'm very fortunate that I got that.
And I'm at EISAKSEN. That's E Isaksen on Twitter.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot again, Aaron, and we will talk to everybody next week.
Peace.
We're out of here.